Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins Collections, where small coins tell big stories, and today, we've got one that might just blow your mind. You've probably seen it dozens, maybe hundreds of times before, that tiny copper coin with the face of Abraham Lincoln staring off into the distance. A coin so common, you might have one in your pocket right now. But what if I told you that a version of this coin, made in 1974, is so rare and so valuable that it could buy you a brand new car, or a big slice of real estate? That's right. Today we're talking about the 1974 Lincoln penny, yes, a 1-cent coin that, in a very specific version and condition, is worth thousands of dollars. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to want to check every penny in your house. Let's rewind the clock and head back to 1974. It was a time of economic stress in the United States. Inflation was on the rise, and the cost of raw materials was starting to skyrocket, especially copper. That might not sound like a big deal today, but when you're minting billions of coins out of copper every year, those costs add up fast. So the US Mint had a problem to solve: how to keep producing pennies without breaking the bank. That's when the Mint began experimenting. In 1974, the US government decided to test an alternative material for the 1-cent coin: aluminum. Over 1 million aluminum pennies were struck as part of this test run, all dated 1974. These coins were lighter than the standard copper pennies and much cheaper to produce. The goal was to see if they could replace the traditional copper penny altogether. It seemed like a smart move at the time, especially as copper prices continued to rise, but here's where things get interesting. Before the aluminum penny could be released to the public, major pushback came from doctors and vending machine companies. Medical professionals were concerned that aluminum coins wouldn't show up on X-rays if a child accidentally swallowed one. Meanwhile, vending machine manufacturers warned that the lightweight aluminum coins would jam or malfunction in machines designed for heavier copper coins. Because of this backlash, the US Mint pulled the plug on the aluminum penny experiment. Nearly all of the aluminum coins were recalled and destroyed. But, and this is where it gets exciting, a few of them slipped through the cracks. A very small number were never returned. Some were given to members of Congress as samples. Some may have been taken home by Mint employees. But regardless of how they escaped, they became the stuff of legend. Today, owning one of these coins is like owning a forbidden relic, a coin that was never meant to exist in the hands of collectors, let alone the general public. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the regular 1974 Lincoln pennies, the ones made out of copper or bronze. These are the ones you're most likely to find in circulation. But even among these, there are rare varieties: coins struck with mint errors, coins in pristine condition, and coins with unique features that drive collectors wild. One of the most sought-after versions is the 1974 Lincoln penny in proof condition. These were struck in San Francisco with special care for collector sets. If kept untouched and flawless, these proof coins are worth far more than face value. Then there's the 1974 Lincoln penny, minted in Denver. Now, most of these are common. But if you happen to find a 1974 struck on an aluminum planchet, that's the holy grail. A version of this coin caused a media frenzy years ago when one surfaced in a private collection. That coin was the subject of legal disputes, intense bidding, and speculation about how it even came to exist. And here's the thing: whether it's an aluminum version, a rare mint error, or a coin in pristine proof condition, the right 1974 penny can fetch an unbelievable amount of money at auction. So here's what you need to look for. First, examine the coin's condition. Coins in mint state, or better yet, graded by a professional service, command much higher prices. Next, check for any unusual characteristics: wrong metal, double die errors, off-center strikes, or anything else that seems different from the average penny. These details can make all the difference. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for: what is one of these rare 1974 Lincoln pennies actually worth? Well, if you happen to own one of the surviving 1974 Lincoln pennies struck in aluminum, or a flawless error coin from that year, it could be worth a stunning $43,000, yes. 1 cent $43,000. That's why it pays to pay attention. Every coin tells a story. And some, like the 1974 Lincoln penny, tell a story so rare and valuable that it changes the way we see the loose change we walk past every single day. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most surprising coins, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss the next coin that might be worth a fortune. Got a rare penny of your own or a story to share? Drop it in the comments, we'd love to hear from you. Today, we're about to take a closer look at a coin that millions of people have seen, and completely overlooked. But what if I told you that a certain version of this coin, struck in 1975, could be worth enough to pay off your debts, buy a luxury car, or even put a down payment on a house? We're talking about none other than the humble yet legendary 1975 Lincoln penny, a coin you've probably held in your hand without realizing it could be hiding a secret that makes it worth tens of thousands of dollars. That's right, 1 cent could be the key to a small fortune. So grab your magnifying glass, sit back, and stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this common-looking coin might be one of the rarest gems in your collection. Let's rewind a bit. The year is 1975. Gerald Ford is president, gas is cheap by today's standards, and disco is dominating the radio. The U.S. Mint is producing billions of Lincoln cents, just like it had been doing since 1909, when Abraham Lincoln's portrait was first introduced to honor his 100th birthday. By 1975, the Lincoln penny was already a familiar part of American life, but that year, something very subtle, very strange, and very valuable began to appear in small numbers. You see, most 1975 pennies are pretty standard. They were made primarily of copper, 95% copper, in fact, with the remaining 5% composed of zinc. These coins were struck at various U.S. mint facilities, including Philadelphia, which had no mint mark, and Denver, which used a small D mint mark just below the date. Billions were made. And at first glance, the 1975 penny doesn't seem like anything special, but here's where things get exciting. Even among billions of coins, there are always a few that slip through with mistakes. And in the world of numismatics, those mistakes are worth gold. We're talking about mint errors, misstrikes, double dies, off-center strikes, and planchet issues. And 1975 happens to be a year when some of these errors became highly collectible. Take, for example, the double die obverse error, when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice, resulting in doubling in areas like the date, the word liberty, or in God we trust. On a 1975 penny, that kind of doubling is incredibly rare, but when it appears, collectors go wild. It takes a careful eye to spot it, but if you do, you're holding something special. Then there's the off-metal strikes. These occur when a penny is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination. Imagine a 1975 penny struck on a dime or nickel blank. These mint mistakes are almost always destroyed at the mint, but a few have survived and made their way into circulation. And those few? They're worth a lot more than just a penny. Now, another collector's dream is a high-grade 1975 penny, a coin that has somehow survived in pristine, untouched condition. Most coins in circulation get scratched, worn down, or tarnished from everyday use. But every once in a while, a 1975 penny turns up in what collectors call mint state, or even proof-like condition, with a flawless surface and sharp details. These coins are incredibly valuable, not because they have an error, but because they look like they just rolled out of the mint today. And speaking of proofs, did you know that in 1975, the U.S. Mint only struck proof coins at the San Francisco Mint? These coins were made with extra care for collectors, and while most are still found in proof sets, a few have been separated and traded individually. A proof 1975 penny with a mirror-like surface and no flaws? That's a gem-grade collector's item, but wait, there's one more detail you need to know. In 1975, the U.S. Mint was already preparing for something big, the nation's bicentennial. And though the Lincoln penny wasn't changed for the bicentennial like the quarter, half-dollar, or dollar coins, it was still a key part of America's coinage at the time. Because of the Mint's focus on the bicentennial designs, there were fewer special attention coins produced in 1975, making flawless or error coins from that year even more desirable to collectors today. So here's the big question. What is a 1975 Lincoln penny actually worth? Well, if it's a regular circulated coin you find in your pocket, probably just 1 cent. But if you have a 1975 penny with a mint error, or one in near-perfect, uncirculated condition, it could be worth far more than anyone would ever expect. And now, the part you've been waiting for. One of these rare 1975 Lincoln pennies, in mint condition and with a verified error, has been valued at a jaw-dropping $41,000. Yes, you heard that right. $41,000, for a penny. So the next time you're sorting through your change, remember this: not all that glitters is gold, and not all pennies are worthless. Because somewhere out there, in someone's old coffee can or childhood coin collection, a 1975 Lincoln penny is waiting to be discovered. And if it ends up in your hands, you just might be holding a tiny piece of American history worth a life-changing sum. If you love this deep dive and want more surprising coin stories, be sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you never miss a hidden treasure. Got a coin you're curious about? Drop it in the comments. We love hearing your finds and questions. Today, we're diving into one of the most familiar coins in America, but don't let that fool you. Hiding among the ordinary is a version of this coin that's anything but average. It's the 1976 Lincoln penny, just 1 cent on the surface, but with the potential to be worth thousands of dollars if you've got the right one in your hands. That's right, the very coin you might pass over or toss in a jar could secretly be a valuable collectible. So sit tight, because by the end of this video, you might be heading straight to your coin stash to take a closer look. Let's go back to 1976, a year of celebration across the United States. It was America's bicentennial, marking 200 years of independence. Patriotic parades filled the streets, fireworks lit up the skies, and people all over the country were buying commemorative items to honor this historic moment. The U.S. Mint joined in the celebration by redesigning the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins with special bicentennial images. But what about the penny? Interestingly, the Lincoln cent remained unchanged. Even during the excitement of the bicentennial year, the humble 1-cent coin kept its classic design, Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. While it didn't get a makeover like some of the other coins that year, the 1976 penny still holds a surprising amount of interest and value for collectors today. You might be wondering, if nothing changed in the design, what makes the 1976 penny so special? Great question. The magic is all in the details. Most 1976 pennies were struck in large numbers, billions, in fact. These were made at the Philadelphia Mint, which didn't carry a mint mark, and at the Denver Mint, where you'll find a small D beneath the date. These coins were part of everyday life. You'd find them in lunch change, payphones, vending machines, everywhere. And because they were used so much, most of them are now worn down, scratched, or just plain dirty, but a tiny percentage managed to survive under extraordinary conditions. Some 1976 Lincoln pennies were carefully preserved, never circulated, and remain in nearly flawless, mint state condition. These coins are so sharp and pristine, they look like they were made yesterday. And that's where the collector's excitement begins. But wait, there's more. Even more exciting than condition are the mint errors. These are coins that slipped through the cracks of the quality control process at the mint. In 1976, a few pennies were struck with fascinating mistakes, things like double dies, off-center strikes, and even coins made from the wrong metal. These types of errors are incredibly rare and highly valuable, because they show that something unusual happened during production. One of the most prized varieties is the double die obverse, where parts of the front of the coin appear to be stamped twice, creating a shadow-like doubling effect. It might be subtle, but collectors love these rare oddities because no two are exactly alike. Then there are off-metal errors, coins struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a penny struck on a dime or foreign coin blank. These minting mistakes are so rare, they often fetch thousands at auction because they're basically once-in-a-lifetime finds. And here's where things get even more interesting. Even a standard 1976 penny, if it's in mint condition and perfectly preserved, can be worth far more than 1 cent. That's right, If you find one graded at MS 67 or higher by a professional grading service, it becomes a valuable collector's item due to its exceptional quality alone, but when you combine that kind of condition with an error, like a double die or off-metal strike, you're entering the realm of seriously valuable coins. Collectors will pay big bucks for a coin that's both rare and beautiful. These are the kinds of pennies that make headlines, stir up bidding wars, and become the crown jewel of someone's collection. So what does all this mean for you? It means that the next time you see a 1976 penny, don't just toss it aside. Look at it closely. Check the date, check for mint marks, look for doubling, inspect the surface for luster and sharpness. Because there's always a chance that one of these humble little coins could be something truly special. Now comes the part you've all been waiting for. How much can a 1976 Lincoln penny actually be worth? Well, if you happen to come across one of these rare, high-grade, error 1976 Lincoln pennies, especially one in pristine, uncirculated condition, it could fetch an eye-popping $40,000 at auction. Yes, you heard that right. A 1-cent coin, worth $40,000. That's the thrill of coin collecting. It's not just about metal and mint marks, it's about stories, history, and the hunt. And sometimes, it's about discovering that something you've overlooked your whole life might actually be a treasure. So if you enjoyed today's deep dive, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a hidden gem. And if you've got a 1976 penny or another rare coin of your own, let us know in the comments. We love hearing about your finds. Today, we're going deep into the story of the 1977 Lincoln penny, a coin that most of us have probably handled at some point without even thinking about it. But here's the twist: certain versions of this coin are worth way more than 1 cent. In fact, one of them recently shocked the coin collecting world with a 5-figure price tag. So stick around, because by the time we reach the end, you'll be digging through your change jar like never before. Let's rewind to 1977. Jimmy Carter had just become president, gas was cheap, and the Star Wars phenomenon had just begun. In the midst of all this cultural and political change, the U.S. Mint continued quietly producing one of the country's most iconic coins. The Lincoln cent. The design was unchanged from previous years. On the obverse, or front, you have the dignified profile of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909. This design was a tribute to the 100th anniversary of his birth, and it remains one of the longest-running coin portraits in U.S. history. The reverse of the 1977 penny still featured the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., a design used from 1959 all the way to 2008. Now, most of these 1977 pennies were made from a bronze composition, primarily copper with a small percentage of tin and zinc. Billions were minted between the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins bearing no mint mark and Denver coins marked with a small d below the year. So what makes some of these 1977 pennies so special? Here's where the treasure hunt begins. While billions of pennies were made, not all of them were created equal. Some came out of the mint with subtle, but valuable, errors. And for coin collectors, those errors are gold. One of the most sought-after errors from 1977 is the double die obverse, where parts of the coin, like the date or inscriptions, appear to be duplicated. This happens when the die that strikes the coin shifts slightly during production, creating a doubling effect. It's not always easy to spot without magnification, but when you do see it, it's unmistakable, and very valuable. Another exciting type of error is the off-center strike. This is when the coin isn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a portion of the design being cut off. Depending on how far off-center it is, and whether the date is still fully visible, these coins can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars. There's also the broad strike error, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally keeps the coin's shape. This results in a coin that looks stretched out and flat around the edges, something that clearly stands out from the rest. But beyond errors, there's another major factor that increases a 1977 penny's value: condition. Most pennies from 1977 went straight into circulation and were used for decades in daily transactions. That means they're scratched, worn, discolored, or dinged up from being passed around. But on rare occasions, collectors or mint workers set aside coins right as they were minted, flawless, untouched, and shimmering in their original luster. These coins, especially when professionally graded at MS 67 or higher, that's mint state, with near-perfect surfaces and strong eye appeal, can be incredibly valuable to collectors who are always looking for the best of the best. Now, let's talk about something that truly stuns people: off-metal strikes, though not officially recorded in 1977. There are rare instances where pennies have been accidentally struck on planchets meant for other denominations, like dimes or foreign coins. If you ever find a 1977 penny that feels unusually light or heavy, or looks silver instead of copper, it could be an off-metal strike. These rarities are like finding a needle in a haystack, but they do exist and they drive collectors wild. So what does all of this mean? It means that not all 1977 Lincoln pennies are created equal. If you find one with a rare error, or a coin in pristine uncirculated condition, you might just be holding something far more valuable than 1 cent. Now here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. One such 1977 Lincoln penny, featuring a rare error and preserved in high-grade condition, was evaluated and auctioned for a staggering $39,000. That's right. A single cent, $39,000. So the next time you're sorting through change, take a closer look. Flip through those old coin rolls. Dig out that coffee can your grandparents kept for years. Because you never know, your next big find might be sitting right under your nose. If you enjoyed this video and want more jaw-dropping stories about coins hiding in plain sight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more coin adventures coming your way, and who knows? One of them could lead you straight to a hidden fortune. Today, we're traveling back to 1979, a time of change, innovation, and inflation in America. And tucked away in that year's pocket change was something truly special, a penny that could now be worth more than most people's cars. That's right, today we're talking about the 1979 Lincoln penny, a coin so common, most of us have passed one through our hands without even noticing. But as you'll see in the next few minutes, not all pennies are created equal. Some are hiding secrets. Some have rare flaws. And a very rare few are worth tens of thousands of dollars. So sit tight, because if you've got a 1979 penny sitting in a drawer somewhere, you might want to take a closer look. Let's start by setting the scene. It's 1979. America is heading into a new decade. Gasoline is 86 cents a gallon. Sony just released the first Walkman. And Margaret Thatcher has just become Prime Minister of the UK. In the middle of all this change, the US Mint was doing something very familiar, striking billions of pennies featuring the profile of President Abraham Lincoln. Just like they had been doing for decades, the Lincoln cent had been in production since 1909, when it became the first US coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1979, it had already become a symbol of everyday American life. But here's what most people don't realize: despite the massive numbers minted that year, some of these 1979 pennies are anything but ordinary. Let's break it down. In 1979, the US Mint struck Lincoln pennies at 3 locations: Philadelphia, which did not include a mint mark; Denver, which used a small D below the date; and San Francisco, which produced proof coins with an S mint mark. Proof coins are made especially for collectors and are struck multiple times with polished dies to give them a mirror-like finish. Most of the proof pennies were included in official sets, but occasionally, one finds its way into circulation, and when that happens, collectors pay attention. Now, most 1979 pennies were made of copper-plated zinc, a composition that began to phase in during the early 1980s as copper became too expensive to use for everyday coinage. But the 1979 penny was still struck with the classic 95% copper and 5% zinc alloy, making it one of the last in the line before the big metal transition. So, with so many 1979 pennies out there, what makes some of them special? That's where things get interesting. Like many coins from this era, the real value lies in errors, varieties, and condition. These are the 3 pillars that turn a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. Let's start with mint errors. Every now and then, something goes wrong during the coin production process. The dies used to strike the coin might be misaligned. The coin blank, called a planchet, might be the wrong metal. Or the design might be struck off-center. These mistakes usually get caught and destroyed. But not always. There are known examples of 1979 pennies with double die obverse errors, where the image appears to have been stamped twice. You might see doubling in the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty." These coins are very rare and often slip by unnoticed because the difference can be subtle, unless you're looking closely. Then there's the famous off-center strike, where the coin is struck outside the center, leaving part of the design missing. The more dramatic the misalignment, and the clearer the date, the more collectors are willing to pay. And don't forget about broad strikes, clipped planchets, and even strikes on foreign blanks. Each of these minting mishaps turns an ordinary coin into a unique one-of-a-kind artifact. Now let's talk condition. This is where a lot of the value starts to climb. A regular 1979 penny, circulated and scratched up, is usually just worth face value. But one that's been carefully preserved, never circulated, never handled, stored in protective cases, can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the grade. Coins that receive a grading of MS 66, MS 67, or higher from a professional coin grading service are exceptionally rare, especially for a penny that was mass-produced. The level of detail, the original luster, the lack of any contact marks, these are the things collectors dream about. And when a coin is both rare in condition and has a valuable error or unique feature, that's when the price tags start turning heads. So what should you be looking for? If you come across a 1979 penny that still has a sharp, crisp image, check it for any doubling or design irregularities. Look closely at the date and the words around Lincoln's head. Compare it to other pennies. Use a magnifying glass if you can. And if anything looks strange or unusually sharp, don't just assume it's a fluke. You could be looking at something special. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. What's the most one of these 1979 Lincoln pennies has ever sold for? Well, one rare specimen, featuring a valuable error and preserved in an exceptional, high-grade condition, fetched an eye-popping $37,000 at auction. Yes. One cent $37,000. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's a hobby, it's a history lesson, and sometimes, it's a surprise payday. So next time you're holding a penny, especially one from 1979, don't just toss it in the change jar. Give it a second look. Because who knows? That tiny copper coin might just be your ticket to a small fortune. If you love this video and want to uncover more hidden treasures from your change, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next coin that could change your life. Got a cool coin story or a 1979 penny of your own? Drop a comment below, we'd love to hear about it.